As a family member of a young man that was doing bath salts, I have a question for Eastern Maine Medical Center. My nephew was 22 years old. He was brought in 3 times to the emergency room asking for help. Twice he was given IVs and whatever and let go. The 3rd time he was pronounced dead. Not one time was he referred to Acadia through that I'm aware of. What is the regular steps that happen? This was 2 weeks ago, so it's very recent.
I can't speak to any specific case. What I can say is that we run into sort of a resources issue, and that is there is no such thing really as detox for bath salts abuse. There are no mechanisms for that. And unfortunately, that results in some of these situations where without other psychiatric illness that would require a psychiatric evaluation, simple drug abuse, and I hate to use the term simple in a situation like that, but simple drug abuse is not something that we have a healthcare system really set up to address, except for some very specific cases like opiate abuse. And so the other piece of that is that if an individual comes in and they've been using drugs and they become clear of the effects of the drugs and they have the capacity to make a decision that they don't want for further care, we can't force them to have further care. And that's also in some ways unfortunate. It certainly is appropriate, it's respect for patient autonomy, but I think that most people who are using bath salts don't know what they're getting into, and it's really a very difficult situation.
I just want to comment, I guess, to bring an analogy to that. We know that cocaine has been around for quite some period of time, and we deal with it on a regular basis. And we see people who are abusers of cocaine and who are addicted to cocaine and who are withdrawing from cocaine. Those people who are withdrawing from cocaine may go to the hospital looking to be detoxed, or they may come into contact with the police department. Once they are, and I'll use this term, detoxed, they get over what is that critical period. They don't then go to Acadia Hospital because they are now detoxed. They're off the cocaine or the critical portion of that episode. So they're released, or they go to jail. In this case, they go to the hospital because they need to be treated for this, and once that treatment is done, well, now they're back out in society again. We can't take them to jail because the law doesn't allow us to, and there is no mechanism to try and put them into some sort of a system that will help them. That's what we're hoping for as we move into the future, is finding some mechanism to get people off this, to treat for it, to educate people, and to try and put a ceiling on the use.
And just in the corollary of that is some folks have asked me, well, why can't you involuntarily commit them to the hospital to get treatment? And you know, involuntary commitments does not work when it's substance abuse only. I mean, you got to have ongoing psychiatric issues. I can't just commit you because you intoxicated with alcohol and acting bizarre, or intoxicated with cocaine, or in this case, bath salt. I think an intervention that potentially could be helpful, and actually is going may be a little bit more relevant as this legislation become more given stricter, is drug court. Drug court is potential diversion. A lot of communities use drug court, saying, okay, now you've been arrested for this drug-related offense, but instead of sending you to jail, I'm going to have you go through treatment as part of your condition for release. And they find that, they find a really good success rate in people not coming back, relapsing as an offender. So I think that's one avenue that we need to look at if this goes further with the legislation.
We have a question here in the back for our panel.
Thank you for coming. A bunch of us are here tonight, as young professionals, and we're here because we care about this community and because we live and work downtown. And we also want to patronize the downtown businesses. However, we no longer feel safe walking around downtown at night and early in the morning. Is there any plan to increase the amount of foot patrols or police presence in that area?
I'm sorry, increase the foot patrol?
Or police presence in the area?
First of all, let me say that we're not finding, let me say first of all that when we're dealing with these drugs, we're typically not able to isolate them in any one particular area of the city. Typically what's happening is people who are under these adverse effects of the drug, they're leaving their homes. They're leaving the buildings in which they took these drugs in. And the reason is because they're paranoid. And they think that something is there to get them, so now they're trying to flee that. So we're finding them out on the street, we're finding them in different homes, it may be in different businesses, where we're getting a call from a member of the public to deal with them. So I don't want to have anybody under the misconception that the downtown area is the zone here, the drug zone for this, because it is not, nor is Fruit Street or New Capehart, or it's just not happening that way. As far as increasing patrols, we, as you are all well aware, I'm sure, particularly those of you who are homeowners and pay taxes, there are limited resources in the city. We have as many officers out on the street right now as we can possibly put out there under the current constraints. Is this something I advocate to the city council for? I continue to do that. I will continue to do that. They are very aware of the situation here. They're very aware of the problems that we're having, and I'm in constant contact with the city manager and with the city council, keeping them up to speed on what's happening with this and what I believe we need to do as we move into the future on this. We have recently, not because of the bath salts problem, but certainly as it has helped, we have increased some of the patrols on our during certain periods of the day, our high volume periods. Some of you may have met some of them. They're seeing a lot more than what they were before. So in terms of the downtown area, I don't want anybody to be so fearful that they don't think they can go out on the streets of Bangor. Bangor is still safe. It has been known as one of the safest communities in comparison to municipalities of equal size. We're still safe. We have this problem. We're dealing with it whenever the problem comes up, no different than we deal with the alcoholic who is out there in the downtown area or the person who's intoxicated and driving. We will continue to do this. What we ask is for the public to have some input into this. Call us if you see something strange. That's what we're there for. We really want to know about these things as they're happening. So if you see somebody that you think, wow, that person's really acting strange, and give us a call. We'll be there, I promise you.
Thank you, Chief. Question way in the back, ma'am.
Dr. Ng mentioned drug courts, and I am a new intern at a drug court. Is there any other than the symptoms, are there any drug testing that can be done to tell if the person has been on bath salts or not?
Well, I'll touch a little bit on this, and Jonathan can touch on it. I think, that's one of the challenge of running to a lot of local small clinics and hospitals. The regular routine drug test is not going to pick this up. In fact, actually, it's interesting. My colleague at the Feds, I spoke to last week about the other issue, he also said it's coming up a lot of false positive for PCP because they set the standard so kind of sensitive that you inadvertently picking up PCP patients for those with the drug screen that doesn't really test for bath salts. I know at Eastern Maine they're starting to do a drug screen, and so hopefully that may be a little bit become more popular among the various hospitals and agencies that they can do that, but you can talk.
Yeah, Affiliated Laboratories, which does actually most of the toxicologic testing for almost all the hospitals in the area, they send samples, has now within the last 3 weeks added as part of its routine urine drug screen essentially bath salts, and it's something that comes back quickly. It's something that we have started using, and it's actually, for us in the emergency department, it's of some use. Although people, I think this concept of safety and the concept of legality or minimal illegality really leads people to tell us, oh yeah, I'm using bath salts, absolutely. There's not a lot of shyness about it. So those people aren't really a challenge, but it's the ones who come in and they appear to be intoxicated with bath salts and are absolutely denying it that it's useful for. But I think the greatest use of this is now those clinics that have patients on narcotics contracts, patients in opiate substitution therapy long-term, and actually the state, who routinely screens parents of children who are receiving money, support money from the state, are screened now for bath salts. And so, and the employee health services as well. You're a truck driver, you have a car accident, truck accident, your pilot, plane incident, you get a drug screen, and now those drug screens are picking up bath salts. So I think that we're actually going to see a real change in the population who's using, once there's a realization that in fact this is not a concealable drug anymore. There are screens now for it, and if you get picked up for that, it's going to be the same consequences as if your urine had come up positive for cocaine or for heroin or for anything else. Whatever that consequence is in your circumstances, it's going to happen now, because this is now part of, actually as of this Monday, it went from being a separate urine drug test to now being in our routine drug test when we order it. So it will be picked up.
Just a condition about the drug screen, though. Remember, we indicated that bath salt is actually a kind of synthetic drug made of different kind of chemicals. Mephedrone is one, MDPV, and methylone is the other one. That last one is probably less common than what we see up here. The drug test picks up MDPV, which seems to be the predominant ones we're seeing up in northern Maine. It doesn't pick up mephedrone. So if your bath salt happened to be made of methadone, you're not going to pick that up unless you do a test that's sent out that takes about a week to come back. So, to really make that call, it has to be, as Jonathan said, a combination between the drug test plus clinical information and any information the patient gives you. So just because they don't have it doesn't mean they didn't use it. So,
although one of the advantages to the new drug screen is that it picks up all of the next generation versions as well. So there's 3 or 4 currently being circulated in Europe that we haven't seen yet, but this picks up all of those. So.
Thank goodness for free enterprise, because I was just reading an article today that said that because these drugs, somebody's going to capitalize on it, because these drugs are out there and there are very few tests for this, that there are drug companies out there that are working on tests right now. I expect we'll see one come up or several come up on the market so that some of these drug companies can make some money on it, but that's okay with me. Let them make them.